Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. Hope you guys are having a fantastic start to your weekend, having a great end to your work week. I got you a pretty big update tonight on the tropics. This is going to be a very significant, very important, very detailed update on the tropics. We're going to talk a little bit about Hurricane Fiona, which is happening, right now. It's picking up a lot of speed and heading right towards areas of Nova Scotia, Western Newfoundland. We're going to talk about that, but I can tell you 80 to 90% of this video is going to talk about what is about to be Ian. It's not going to be Hermine. There's a system in the eastern Atlantic that's not really going to bother anybody that ended up taking the H name, which is Hermine, which is the name we thought this was going to be called. But this is going to be Ian, the dreaded I name, which has wreaked havoc over the years in hurricane season. The I name has been a dangerous name. It seems like a very damaging name, but this is going to be Ian. We're almost 99% sure. And it could be Ian by the time some of you folks actually watch this video. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it is. So we're going to give you some big time details on this. We're going to go over all the model guidance. And we're also going to talk about what's driving, what's steering this, what's promoting strengthening, how short-term development of this storm plays a big factor on the steering in the long term of this storm. And this means everything. There's been some ticks west today, which isn't necessarily good news for a lot more people. So we're going to get as detailed as possible because this is going to be a big update. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys are certainly responding with that. Welcome to any new people to my channel. I know I don't have the best, most appealing weather channel, YouTube channel out there, but I hope it does you guys well, and I hope I feed you guys enough information out there, and I really appreciate the support from you all. Hit me up on Twitter. It's a great way to follow along. Great way to stay up to date. It's in Facebook also. If you guys got anything that I can pray over, please put it in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. So here's the latest 5 p.m. update Eastern time. By the time I'm probably at the end of this video, there might be an 8 p.m. update because they drop it normally before 8 p.m. So who knows? Maybe by the time I'm at the end of this video, this might be Ian. But right now, it's Tropical Depression 9. You got tropical storm watches up for Jamaica, hurricane watches up for the Cayman Islands, nothing up for Western Cuba, but this is forecast to become a hurricane as early as maybe sometime overnight Sunday into Monday morning. And then you see this dreaded M right here. No, that does not stand for marginal. It stands for major, which is a Category 3 or higher hurricane. Forecasted to be on the western coast of Florida, just south of Tampa Bay, sometime Wednesday afternoon. As of right now, this cone in the long term is actually ticked ever so slightly west. So let's take another look at this. Here we go. Right now, a 35-mile-per-hour tropical depression. This storm is still highly sheared. We'll take another look at it here in a second. But right now, the low-level circulation is still not directly under that mid-level convection. But mid-level convection is starting to go a little bit more over that low-level circulation. Once that happens, it really promotes strengthening. So as we get, I would say 24 hours from now, this system is going to begin to strengthen more. But forecast to become a tropical storm probably sometime overnight. So like I said, by the time some of you guys watch this, this will be Tropical Storm Ian. By the time we get into 2 a.m. tomorrow, not tomorrow, but technically for Sunday, overnight tomorrow night into Sunday morning, forecast to be a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm. We're not expecting much strengthening over the next 24 hours, but this will strengthen enough to take the name Ian. So right now, for you folks in Jamaica, I do think y'all are going to get some showers, some storms, gusty winds, but not a direct impact from a tropical storm from this, unless you get some kind of drastic short-term changes over the next 12 to 24 hours. But for you folks in the Cayman Islands, this has shifted a little bit further west. You guys could expect maybe hurricane conditions moving in as early as maybe Sunday late tonight, Sunday evening. And I think the worst is going to be on the western areas of the Cayman Islands. And then this is when it starts to strengthen. It starts to get to a 90 mile per hour hurricane as early as sometime Monday afternoon, crosses over western Cuba, and then forecast to become a 110 mile per hour hurricane well west of the Florida Keys. But remember, you guys are still in that cone, so this could go either way. And then here you go, 115 mile per hour storm forecasted per the National Hurricane Center as of right now. Right now, this could change. Just south of Tampa Bay, it looks like it's almost heading right towards Tampa Bay between Cape Coral and Tampa Bay right here. So This is a big deal. It could shift a little bit more west, could shift a little bit more east. But guys, this is forecast to become a major hurricane now. So, I mean, you guys in Florida, before we get deep into this, you guys, especially in the peninsula of Florida, need to make hurricane preparations. I'm not saying freak out and hunker down or anything like that, or just prepare for the, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say don't prepare for the absolute worst, but there's no need to freak out because we don't know exactly where the worst conditions are going to be. But you guys who live in Florida, I mean, you live in Florida, so you know about hurricanes. You should have some kind of plan together, and if you don't, certainly figure out how to get one together. You should just have your supplies ready, bottles of water, and hopefully some of you guys have some backup generators or at least know somebody that does. I know not everybody is fortunate enough to have a generator. I know I'm not, but hopefully more people than not have some kind of way to get some backup power. And just be prepared in this area because, I mean, I don't think we're going to get away from at least being impacted by this tropical system in some shape or form. So let's keep moving a little bit further. Like I said, it's a tropical depression 9. We got Fiona as the 8 p.m. update. We now have an 8 p.m. update, technically a 7:08 p.m. update. It's a 125 mile per hour hurricane still, guys, but this is a post-tropical hurricane. It's lost its tropical characteristics, but it's going to start to kind of make that turn and move more so due north towards Nova Scotia. We'll talk a little bit more about Fiona towards the end of the video, but here's Tropical Depression 9 right now. And like I said, as of right now, it's a tropical depression, but I'll try to flip back to the National Hurricane Center site here in a second. We'll see if we get an upgrade to Ian. But right now, I don't expect it to upgrade to Ian per the 8 p.m. update, just based off what it looks like. It's still being sheared, so still getting hit hard by some easterly shear, northeasterly shear in general. So you got some robust convection firing off. But this is the area right here. I would say the threshold is somewhere south of Jamaica into the Western Caribbean where the atmosphere, I feel like, maximizes for some at minimum, guys, gradual strengthening. But I think this is going to undergo some kind of rapid intensification if it gets into this area of the Gulf of Mexico right here. And it might even do it in the Western Caribbean. This is going to escalate quickly, guys. I can't reiterate that enough. The sun is setting now. On this system here in the eastern, getting into the central Caribbean. But you see the low-level circulation right here, those low-level clouds. But you see how the convection is starting to kind of try to blow up over the low-level center of this storm, which is considered basically the heart and soul of this storm. This is huge. I know you're looking at this and you're saying, well, Mitch, what am I looking at here? It looks like a sloppy storm system. But actually, how quick does this consolidate? Does this get its act together here in the next really 12, 18 hours plays a pivotal role on the steering currents in the short-term range of this forecast. And down the road, that tells us a lot on what it could potentially do in the medium to long term. I wouldn't even call it a long term anymore, pretty much the medium term, how it's going to affect Cuba and Florida and areas, maybe some of the Gulf states. Could it drift more back into an Alabama threat or Mississippi threat? We got a lot to figure out with this, but right now it's looking like Florida. So let's start to break down some model guidance here. Let's look at the latest GFS, and let's start this off around Saturday evening. So around this time tomorrow. We're expecting this, per the GFS, to be well south of Jamaica. Not even really bothering it too much, but it's going to gradually strengthen. You see how this number begins to drop right here? That symbolizes some strengthening. And I can tell you, the GFS has this strengthening very quickly. And it's really trying to say and tell us that, hey, this is going to get its act together and become a more dominant vortice or vortmax a little bit further south in the near term, which is going to allow for more of a southerly track and more just west track. So this gets into the Western Caribbean as we're getting into Monday morning. So Monday morning, I would say Sunday night into Monday morning, the worst conditions, especially for the western areas of the Cayman Islands, the western Cayman Island here, you guys could potentially be very, very close to a big-time hurricane. I'm not saying a Category 4 or 5 hurricane, but if the GFS is correct, this could get dangerous very quickly in the next 48 to 72 hours, and this is going to be something we certainly need to watch out for, especially if you're in the Western Cayman Island right here. But this is, per the GFS, forecast to continue to intensify. It would make landfall per the GFS on the far western areas of Cuba as a Category 4 hurricane at minimum. A 944 millibar low pressure that is pushing Category 5 status almost, but I would say this is around a Category 4 hurricane if I was to guess. But I mean, this is just one model one. This will be overnight, Monday into next Tuesday morning. And then it gets off the coast of the northern areas of western Cuba, gets into the Gulf of Mexico, begins to intensify again. And at this point, Wednesday morning, if the GFS is correct, notice it's not going into Florida. But I would say, well, the peninsula of Florida, I would say this would be a Category 5 hurricane next Wednesday morning, next week, September the 28th. If you're confused of what time frame we're at, look up here. But then it begins to slow down. And I'll tell you why. Please stay tuned, because we're going to go into why it's getting steered this way or that on per the European and the GFS. But per the GFS, this has this moving towards the panhandle of Florida and due north instead of getting pulled northeast like the European does, like I'm about to show you. But it begins to lose some of its steam. Still a strong hurricane, but only makes landfall as maybe a Category 1-2 hurricane when it was just a Category 5 hurricane about, per the model, 24 to 36 hours prior. And I think that's because it interacts with some intense shear up here from a strong cold front, which I'm going to talk about here in a second. Stay tuned, because that plays a big role in steering. And if the GFS is correct, weakening of this system, if something like the GFS was to happen just before landfall, but it's hard to take that serious just yet. GFS goes right into the panhandle of Florida. European, which has been steady as it goes over the last several days. European has this intensifying much more slower. So still has a weak tropical storm south of Jamaica sometime overnight, tomorrow night into Sunday morning. You're getting into Sunday morning. The European starts to move north much quicker than the GFS. And then it starts to bring some gusty showers, gusty storms into areas, especially western Jamaica. And then this starts to head right towards the Cayman Islands. Like I said, the western area is getting hit the hardest. Maybe a strong tropical storm, a hurricane forecasted per the National Hurricane Center. So this is likely going to be a hurricane hitting areas of the Cayman Islands sometime per the European model. Likely will happen more so during the day, I would say Monday, but still probably feeling impacts late Sunday night. And then it'll begin to intensify in this pocket of very favorable conditions, sea surface temperatures in the mid to upper 80s, maybe even 90s in certain areas. And then the upper wind pattern in this area is not perfect. It's hard to call anything perfect, but it is about as close to perfect as you can ask for a tropical system. So I'd expect an intensifying hurricane as it approaches landfall in the southern western areas. Basically the western areas of Cuba on the south coastline is what I'm trying to say. Makes landfall per the Euro around Tuesday morning as a Category 2 hurricane, I would say. And then it gets into the Gulf of Mexico, the Florida Straits, if you will, side swipes of the Florida Keys, likely as a Category 3 borderline. Well, I would say this would be a Category 3 hurricane, and then unfortunately begins to intensify the system again. And then Wednesday morning has it making landfall well south of Tampa Bay as probably a major hurricane, maybe a borderline Category 4 hurricane. This would be devastating. You look at the GFS and you're saying, wow, that looks much worse. But you almost would pull for a GFS rather than a Euro, just because a GFS looks like it would be weakening upon landfall. The European is strengthening upon landfall. And we know, based off what just happened in Puerto Rico earlier this week, what a strengthening hurricane can do. Seems like the impacts, obviously, due to the fact that it's strengthening, it just seems like they just amplify. So this would be the case here in southwest Florida. Slams the whole entire peninsula of Florida, gets off the coast of the southeast, begins to intensify again, and a weakness forms up here and allows for this system to pull back north per the Euro. Now this is getting far out, but next Friday morning makes landfall again between Myrtle Beach and Wilmington as a Category 2, Category 1, Category 2 hurricane. So it might make an additional landfall, even U.S. speaking. And I'm not even talking about all these other landfalls it can make down here. But as far as U.S., it could make 2 impacts if the European happens. this would be devastating because it'll be 2 hits. So let's talk about the ensembles. They are out. And here we go. So, and guys, I hope I'm not delivering a sloppy delivery. Sometimes when I'm talking in the middle of these videos, I feel like, man, I'm talking really sloppy here. So if I am, I apologize. Some nights are just like that. You can't be perfect every night, but I hope you guys are getting the feed of information well. So let's get going here. Let's keep talking. So here is the GEFS ensembles. It's the ensembles for the latest GFS. Here you go. Strong signal. It looks to be well south of Jamaica as far as the center of the storm, but it looks like you still got some strong members to go over. And I'm sorry, this is actually, no, this is the GEFS ensembles. I thought maybe I was showing you the European ensembles, but it shows a couple of these members going right over the Cayman Islands. Remember, the ensembles make up many members, over 20, 25, 30 members here. So there's a lot of members on this, and this moves into, a lot of members moves it right over the Cayman Islands and then right over Western Cuba. But here, let's stop it right here. Watch this little tick here. Even though the GFS actually went west, the operational GFS, the ensembles went northeast. You see, this is the run prior, this is the run now. This is the run prior, this is the run now. So there was a tick northeast in the ensembles that almost favored more of the European model. So we got to see what happens. You got this weird split off. And I think that tells you a lot on which vortice becomes dominant in the short term. It's a weird split right here on the ensembles. It's very interesting. Some of these, I would say more, takes this more route more into the Gulf of Mexico, the eastern Gulf of Mexico. But then you got, I would say, 24, I would say 30% or so of the runs to plow it kind of right into the southern areas of Florida. But look at all these members. It gets kind of spread out at this point. You got members all the way in the central Gulf of Mexico, and then you got some members well off the coast of the southeast, but almost every member makes landfall somewhere in the U.S. So they get kind of split up when it gets into more of the longer range to the Gulf of Mexico. The European ensembles, what did they do? I can tell you in the short term, this is looking like a threat to the Cayman Islands, but almost all of them pass south of Jamaica. It looks like it's just going to scrape you folks in Jamaica. That's why you're only under tropical storm watches. But I think you'll have some upgrades to some warnings in the Cayman Islands here in the next couple updates. This is going to plow, I would say, 80% of the members go right into Western Cuba. And then look at all these members. The European in general in its ensembles is a much quicker solution. If something that favors the GFS, this is going to be more of a prolonged, talked about event. The European in its ensembles wants to plow this. Most members want to plow this right into southern Florida, obviously southwest Florida. This moves over Florida, but it gets very spread out. But you notice the ones that are down here are much slower. The ones that turn out quicker, I mean, you got some members way up here next Thursday morning, but then you got some members still way down here next Thursday morning. So it depends on. So I think these members are catching that trough, and some of these more further western members are getting jammed up, slowing down, and do not catch the trough, the cold front, which is I'm about to talk about, guys. It's a very important part of the video that's going to explain what's steering this system. So this, you got some members going over here, some members going over here. So what's powering such why, I guess what I'm saying is, why is this forecast to become such a strong hurricane? Well, we know either way that this is going to become a strong hurricane, likely a major hurricane at some point. So right now the system is getting hit pretty good. It's kind of leveled off some by some shear. And this is because of the wake of Hurricane Fiona. As we get into, or as early as tomorrow morning, the shear is going to lessen. And as we get into tomorrow evening throughout the entire weekend, what we call, we're going to just fast forward it right here, what we call an anticyclonic flow, or some, and the weather term for it is a ULAC. This is basically an anticyclonic flow, a flow aloft that moves in the opposite direction as the actual flow of the tropical system, which moves like this. This flow aloft, I'm talking 35, 40,000 feet up in the air, pushes wind, basically pushes air away from the center of the storm. As it does that, allows for more storm to rise in the middle of the storm, and that provides more intense burst of convection. Therefore, you have a stronger, ventilating, breathing storm. So it'll allow for Hurricane Ian to become a powerful hurricane, even as it approaches the Cayman Islands potentially, and certainly as it approaches Western Cuba, and then it could become a major hurricane as it gets into maybe the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So another thing that isn't stopping this, certainly isn't stopping this, is these bathtub-like waters in the western Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico. And then there's an area right in here where the sea surface temperatures are maybe pushing 90 degrees. So this is pretty wild here, but I mean, this is typical this time of the year. Nothing unusual about these sea surface temperatures. I know you're thinking, is it 30 degrees Fahrenheit? No, this is in Celsius. So, 30, 31 degrees Celsius to Fahrenheit, around the upper 80s in Fahrenheit. So, let's talk about, and I got a little bug there. Let me get it. Okay, let's talk about the steering currents, and I'm going to try to explain this the best way I can. 20 minutes into this video, and I feel like I still got a lot to talk about, but we're wrapping it up here. This is the European model. So you see this big blue area right here that symbolizes a low pressure. This blue area right here symbolizes a trough, a cold front, which by the way will deliver an additional big time blast of cooler air early next week, as the cool air that's in the eastern U.S. right now will moderate. It'll warm back up Sunday for certain areas, but then another reinforcing blast of fall air will come in early next week. That cold front is a massive, massive factor on what happens with future Ian. And as we're moving here comes Ian right here, per the European model. And what happens here is Ian comes up, feels this trough, and when it feels it, the flow around this trough is moving like this. It feels it, it begins to get yanked north, and then gets yanked a little bit northeast, gets pulled over Florida, really feels this weakness, and as it feels this weakness, another weakness continues to develop or stay in the same area right over the Carolinas. And as you can tell, you got ridging right here. You got ridging building over the Atlantic. And this blue right here, it symbolizes a weakness in the upper air pattern. So what happens here is this feels this weakness as a strong system, and that is why it turns around and tugs back northwest into the Carolinas. So you see this, basically the timing is just right where this gets pulled right over Florida. Now you look at the GFS, right? And these oranges or oranges or reds or whatever color you want to call this, that is ridging. What happens with the GFS is you think the same thing's about to happen with the GFS. It's about to feel this weakness and head on out. But the troughing begins to move away. So the timing is off. So the troughing moves out, the cold front, it tries to feel this weakness, but not before some light ridging tries to develop over the southeast. So basically you got this flow around this ridge, and then you got this flow around this really light flow around this ridge. So with this flow going like this and a flow going like this, you got kind of competing currents. So that's not going to stop. That's not going to completely stall out Ian per the GFS, but it's going to kind of stall it, slow it down, and basically in a nutshell, a very more slow evolution of this system unfolds. So this allows basically for the system to just kind of gradually drift north more so into kind of just some light ridging up here. And then it just kind of dwindles away and weakens. And another way to show this is a phenomenal, I love looking at dew points. It's an excellent way to show an air mass, but check it out. You got the dry air over the southeast between now and over this weekend. The moist air returns, but you see this dry air right here. These are not temperatures, these are dew points. Here it comes. Big time cold front moves in. I mean, this cold front's probably going to try to make it all the way to Jacksonville, all the way into the Big Bend areas of Florida. But here comes the hurricane. So this hurricane is going right up against an extremely dry air mass. I mean, I've never seen that tight of a gradient. So the GFS wants to plow it right into this air mass, very dry air, and a lot of shear due to this troughing. So that's why I think the GFS has a weakening storm upon landfall. If that makes sense, it interacts with this dry air, some shear, and it really just puts a damper on the tropical system, which would be good news. So quick update on Fiona, guys. I know I haven't talked much on it. Fiona is an unfolding thing. It's happening right now. It's unfolding very quickly, and I mean, this is moving fast. And I would actually say Fiona is moving a little bit further east of guidance. So this might put more people in western Newfoundland under the gun. So let's actually take a look at the radar. You guys have seen a lot of rain already today in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. That's kind of been, you guys almost been fire hosed by the moisture feed from Fiona. And mean this roll up here, it's in the 50s. It doesn't really feel like a tropical air mass, and there's a reason for that. The trough that's moved through, it's merging with the trough. This is becoming post-tropical. It's lost its tropical characteristics. But you see this moisture right here? This is the real moisture associated with Fiona. And if you're trying to figure out where we are, this is basically, here's a more zoomed out look. Right here is the eastern areas of Nova Scotia, and here's Newfoundland. So this right here is actually Fiona racing up. So you guys hunker down up there. It's coming quick. And here it is. But you notice, look how fast it's racing. This is about to kind of make that turn more north. This is going to happen very quick overnight. Very quick. It's going to cause a lot of ruckus and just make a lot of people upset. But hopefully it moves in, does what it has to do, and does as much minimum damage as possible. So that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Stay safe out there, and I'll have you an update in the morning.